What's up, y'all? It's Allie. I'm back here with another video. Today we're going to be doing my labor and delivery story. I made a few posts on social media a couple weeks ago asking everybody what they would want to see in this video, any questions that they had for me, anything that they'd want to know about my labor and delivery, and I got really good feedback, so I came up with a list of questions, kind of mixed them in with my story. If you still have questions after the video, leave them in the comments. I do want to say I'm working on getting some contacts because the glare from the ring light in my glasses I know is probably extremely distracting. Bear with me for the next couple of videos. I'm working on getting contacts so that I can make better videos for you guys. I had questions about how I found out I was pregnant, who I told, all that good stuff. So we're gonna start with pregnancy. I jotted down some notes, so if I'm glancing back and forth, I just wanna make sure that I hit everything, answer all of the questions, and entirely tell my labor and delivery story. First of all, I have a very irregular pregnancy schedule, but it always comes. So it may not be the exact same day every month, but it always comes in around about the same week, and I never miss a month. When I was about 5 or 6 days past what my calendar was telling me I should have had a period by, I kind of knew like, okay, this isn't good. So I went out and bought a test on my way to work. At the time I was working at Longhorns, and I went out and bought a test, brought it with me to work. Before I clocked in, I went in the bathroom. I just couldn't wait. I'm one of those very impatient people. Like, I need to know now. Like, if somebody says they want to tell me something and then they're like, oh wait, never mind, I'm like, no, you still have to tell me. Like, I need to know now. Had to immediately like take the test. I did not want to wait. I went in the bathroom, took the test, and you know, it normally says wait 2 minutes for the best results. Guys, I got a positive test within like 60 seconds. So honestly, I didn't cry. I wasn't mad. I couldn't feel, like I felt numb. I didn't know what to think. Like, is this real? Because obviously when you first find out you're pregnant, like that early on, you don't feel a baby move. You don't have a belly bump. You don't know anything. You don't know the gender. So it's kind of just like up in the air, and you're like, is this real? Like there's really a baby starting to grow in there. So for one, I was 18 when I got pregnant. I was scared to tell family. I was scared to tell the guy, Kingston's dad. I was scared to tell him. I didn't know what anyone would think. I was in an apprenticeship at a really nice salon. I was scared to tell those ladies. I didn't know how that was gonna go. Like, I just did not know where this was gonna take me at this point. So I instantly took a picture of the test and I sent a picture to Kingston's dad, and his response was the 2 little eyeballs, the emoji eyeballs. That's all he said. So I was like, crap, like, what are we gonna do? I was pretty freaked out at this point. Like, I did not know where this was gonna take me. I was so up in the air. I had so many what ifs and so many unmade decisions at this point. I just wanted to get in somewhere and get an ultrasound, like confirm this. Is this real? So there's a great organization where I come from. It's called the Pregnancy Health Center. I instantly called them and they were able to set me up with a free ultrasound. And they did a lot of counseling. They asked me, you know, are you gonna want to adopt, abort, or keep the child? I mean, those are very real questions you have to ask yourself whenever it's an unplanned pregnancy. In my beliefs, I do not believe in abortion. We're not gonna get into that. That's a whole nother video, probably one that will never actually come up because it's just a very touchy subject for people, you know? But me personally, that's not something that I believe in, something that I would ever do. However, like I said, I was 18. I didn't have much to offer a kid. I'm not gonna lie. I contemplated adoption. Like, could I give this child to a family? I say this child, like now I adore my son Kingston, but at the time, this is my thoughts at the time. I was kind of like, would this child be better off in a family where they're whole, they're together, they love this baby, could they give him a better life? It was just, the cards were not aligning for me personally, so I kind of was very scared. So right from the beginning, they found the baby. I got set up with an OB at an actual, like, you know, doctor's office. Dr. Nichols was my nickel. Dr. Nichols was my nickel. Dr. Nichols was my doctor. I absolutely loved her. She did great. We didn't have any complications throughout my pregnancy at all, so that was great. When we did the 20-week ultrasound, that's kind of whenever they tell you the gender and they kind of do some genetic testing to see if there's anything that they can see and find now that they could get ahead of the game with. So, you know, I actually had a little scare with my 20-week ultrasound, was going to the community health center for all of my visits because that's where I was covered with insurance. But for my 20-week ultrasound, the ultrasound tech at community health center was actually out on maternity leave with her baby. So I had to go to St. Mary's to get my ultrasound done, and then they were just going to communicate the results between the two places. I went and did my ultrasound, and they don't tell you the results right away. So like, it's not like you go and they're like looking at your belly and they're like, oh yeah, so right here there's the cleft lip, right here there's missing 2 toes. Like, they don't tell you that stuff. You're in this ultrasound and they are able to confirm the gender, because at this point I already knew his gender. I actually did an early gender blood test at 13 weeks and they were able to tell me it was a boy, but I didn't know anything else. And then when I went to my next appointment with my OB, she still hadn't got the results from the 20-week ultrasound. So I was a little worried. Guys, I never got any results. Like, my entire pregnancy went by and I was never told anything about my 20-week ultrasound. Every time I would go to see my OB, they would say that they never got the results from St. Mary's sent over. So like, the whole time I'm thinking like, is something wrong with my baby? But my mom kept telling me, you know, if something was truly really wrong, they would immediately contact you and be on top of that. So it's safe to say everything was okay and they weren't too worried about, you know, the whole ultrasound thing. That was kind of scary to not know, and just to know that there could be possibilities found out in that ultrasound, and then you don't even get to see the results. Fast forward after the 20-week appointment all the way, you know, once you get to the end, you start going every week. So once I was at that point, my first check, and I was dilated to 1 centimeter. And, you know, I was kind of bummed because you have 10 centimeters to go before you can push out a baby, you know, and I was very miserable and over it. So I really wanted to be like, to the point where she was like, yeah, baby any day now. But, you know, my doctor, my mom, my grandma, everybody that I talked to said 1 centimeter at 37 weeks for first time mom, that's pretty good. So I was trying to stay positive about it, you know, like, okay, at least you're progressing a little bit, but I wasn't thinning out at all. So that was kind of bumming to know that I wasn't progressing super quickly at all. Sunday before my 38-week appointment, I was having some really bad Braxton Hicks, but again, as a first-time mom, I didn't know what labor contractions felt like. All I knew was like, these feel tight and uncomfortable and like pressure, and I felt like I should go to the hospital and get checked. But you also hear stories of like, wait as long as you possibly can, like they'll send you home. You don't want to be sitting in the hospital for hours and hours and hours just to be sent home. So I drove all the way to the hospital and then decided, you know, like, I don't feel terrible. I could probably, you know, keep moving, keep walking. So I probably shouldn't go into the hospital and waste my time. So I actually just went home. And then the next day, Monday, was my 38-week appointment. I was like, Dr. Nichols, I'm miserable. I need this baby out of me. And so she's like, you know, I can't actually induce you until you're 39 weeks along, but we can go ahead and schedule your induction date for next week. So I was like, yes, as soon as you can schedule it, like, let's get this going. My appointment this week, 38 weeks, was on a Monday, and we scheduled my induction for the following Tuesday. So it was a week and a day in advance that we scheduled my induction. After my 38-week appointment, I then went home. It was just a normal day, for real. That night, Keithlyn and I went to bed around probably 10 or 10:30-ish. This brings me to another question. So how did I go into labor, and how did I know that I was in labor? Like I said, we went to bed around 10, and about 11 o'clock, this is all I'm gonna say. The same thing that makes you a baby can also make your baby come out. By 2 a.m., I started feeling a lot of pressure, like unbearable pressure that I couldn't sleep through, pressure that was not allowing me to just lay comfortably at all. I kept getting up and down out of bed, going to the bathroom, walking around, like I just could not get comfortable. So this went on for about 2 hours, and I noticed that they were only about 5 minutes away when I was feeling this pressure. So I was like, okay, that's pretty good. And my mom had always told me, you know, you will know when it's time to go to the hospital. Like, you will just be so uncomfortable that you don't want to wait. You're just ready to go to the hospital and have this baby. So this is the Tuesday after my appointment where she scheduled me for an induction. This is the next Tuesday. And I just decided at around 4:30, I'm going to the hospital. And like I said, that Sunday before, I had kind of just scared everybody and said I was going to the hospital to get checked. So at this point, Keithlyn and my mom were kind of like, okay, like, you just said 2 days ago that you wanted to go, then you didn't go. Like, are you for real or what? So I didn't actually, like, wake Keithlin up, I just let him know I'm going to the hospital, you know, I'll call you if anything is major. I called and let my mom know, and she then said, you know, I'll get up and get ready and meet you there. So I went and checked myself into triage. Actually, at this point, it's 4:30 in the morning. So labor and delivery where I live is actually not open until I think 7 or 8 in the morning. So I had to go to the emergency room at this point. So when I'm walking into the emergency room, I get checked in, whatever, and in walks this other lady who says that she called ahead, like she's in immense pain and she needs to go right now. So she was also pregnant. 2 nurses come with 2 wheelchairs and we both go back at the same time. And so she's getting wheeled ahead of me, obviously, because she's, you know, complaining about being in very much pain, which, yes, labor is very painful. But for me at this point, I wasn't that far into my labor, so I wasn't feeling as much pain and uncomfortableness as this lady was. So she's like moaning out in pain, like squirming around in her wheelchair, can't sit still. And I'm over here like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have came to the hospital. Like, I'm not in that much pain. Like, is this for real? Am I really going into labor right now? I spent 2 hours in triage just because they want to make sure you're progressing enough to even admit you into a room. What's the point of putting you into the room if the baby's not going to come today, you know? I had a question about medication and epidural during labor all throughout my entire pregnancy. Ask anybody who knows me. I was 100% no epidural, like no medicine at all. I wanted to do it natural as possible. I did a lot of research. I practiced a lot of different methods to get through the labor without any medication at home. I took tons of classes, but guys, let me tell you, all of the things that you plan before giving birth to a baby can just go out the window at the point of delivery. So when I got to triage, like I said, I wasn't in as much pain as this lady seemed to be, but I definitely was feeling some pressure. So in my head, I'm thinking, if I'm only dilated to about a 2, how in the heck am I going to get through the rest of the 8 centimeters and push a baby out of my vagina? I already decided, like, okay, as soon as we get to my room and as soon as I can have medication, I want it. Like, I was thinking in my head, I want this to be as enjoyable and memorable of an experience as I can. And if that means taking medication so that I can, you know, get through this and enjoy seeing my son, then I'm gonna do it. The cons of getting an epidural at this point did not outweigh like the pain that I was feeling, and I just felt like, you have the option to not feel this pain. Why are you putting yourself through this? But I will say, while spending time in triage, I got up and went to the bathroom often those 2 hours, and I felt like that was really good for me. Being up and active and walking around kind of took the pressure away. It took my brain off of things, took my mind off of things. So that is one thing when you're trying to get through the contractions. Getting up and being active and doing something that can distract you from feeling those contractions definitely helps. Because when you just sit there and you think, oh my god, 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 like this freaking hurts, it does let up. So if you're able to distract yourself through that pain and then you get a break in between. We got to my room around 6 or 7 in the morning. At this point, I was dilated to about a 4. So that's still not very far along. I'd only moved up 2 centimeters in those 3 hours. So I wasn't progressing very fast at all. I started to unpack things, get everything put away. I went in there looking a complete, utter mess. And I'm thinking to myself, people are gonna be taking pictures of me, and like, I'm feeling okay right now, so I might as well go ahead and straighten my hair. But I had also let my nurse know, like, hey, I do want to start medication now. Like, I would like to start either the IV meds or whatever now, because I just want to start feeling comfortable. I want to start working. I don't want to wait till the last minute. So she's like, okay, yeah, whenever you progress a little bit further, we'll get some medicine in, whatever. So I'm like, whatever, I feel okay. After straightening my hair, I laid back down in bed and I was like, oh, okay, this is getting a little pressury down here, getting a little uncomfortable. So I asked my nurse, I'm like, can we go ahead and start the medicine? And she's like, you were just up straightening your hair. You don't need any medicine, you're fine. And that kind of threw me off. I'm like, this is my experience, my pregnancy, my choice, and I want the damn medicine. I complained about it enough that she eventually put an IV in because they wanted to wait for the epidural. So I had 2 rounds of the IV meds before I was able to get an epidural. But by the second time, I'm like, okay, another dose of that isn't gonna do anything for me. They had upped my Pitocin. I was like, no, I need an epidural now. We couldn't find my nurse. She wouldn't come in to do the epidural. So at this point, like, I'm like trying to get myself up out of bed with all these IVs and stuff hooked up to me. They've still got the belts on me, monitoring everything, and I'm like, no, we're gonna go find somebody right now to give me this epidural. It was so crazy for me, guys. There was 8 other babies being delivered at this hospital at the same time as me. So the nurse staff was very busy, and I had let my nurse know, like I said, very early on, like, please let the anesthesiologist know that I would like the epidural, because they have to put the order in before the anesthesiologist comes down and gives it to you. That wasn't happening for me. I wasn't getting that at all. I know you guys are probably thinking, like, were you alone? Why were you getting up to go find the nurse? My mom was in the room, both my grandmothers were in the room, and my son's dad was in the room at this point. They weren't doing it, so I was gonna go do it myself. At least I thought I was. The anesthesiologist is walking in and she's like, hello, hon, like, were you expecting to get an epidural today? At this point, my nurse is walking in, and so the anesthesiologist tells her, like, this lady is in a lot of pain here, and we're almost to the point where she can't get the epidural because you have to sit so still. Like, she's like, why didn't you put this order in? She's like, ready, we're doing this now. I was extremely terrified of the epidural, but at this point, in the middle of, you know, labor, I was like, just do it. Around this time, I think I'm probably like 6 or 7 centimeters along, and then my doctor came and broke my water. That was excruciating. The complications really started to happen around the end when I was getting really close to giving birth. I was about a 9 when she checked me, and it was probably 4:30ish when she checked me. I was at a 9. When she came back in around 4:45, 5 o'clock, I was a 9.5, and at this point I'm like, no, like, I feel a lot of pressure down there. I think it's time to push. And she's like, okay, well, we're waiting on your doctor. We can't push until you're at a 10. By the time my doctor got there, got everything ready, got me in position, got other people out of the room who were not supposed to be in the room, because you can only have 3 people in the room. My son, his head was stuck. His head was stuck. So I didn't know how to push, and my doctor's trying to tell me how to push. I got my grandma and my mom back here yelling, come on sis, push, let's go, let's go. And then my doctor's like, you cannot talk, you cannot talk. If I hear you talk or moaning, then you're not pushing right. You're not supposed to breathe, you're not. And I'm just like, oh my God. They have these bars attached to the hospital bed, and I was told to grab onto those and pull myself forward, because I was kind of digging my elbows down and I wasn't allowing my son to come out right. So once I grabbed onto these bars and pulled like this, he came out super fast. He was sunny side up, so that means instead of looking down when he came out, he was looking up. So that caused his head to get a little stuck, caused me a lot more pressure and pain, and it caused the pushing to be a little bit more difficult. So the nurses all told me, with a sunny side up baby like that, normally people push for about 2 hours. I only pushed for 15 or so minutes. But in the moment, I was kind of freaked out, and I'm like, what is gonna happen? Who was in the room for my actual delivery? His dad, my mom, and my grandma on my mom's side were in the room. Those 3 people. Another question that somebody asked was, what was my first thought when I saw my son? And honestly, like, I feel like I just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried my entire labor. Like, all I did was cry. So by the time he came out, I had an epidural. So pushing him out was not painful for me. Pushing him out, like, felt good. It was like, get this out of me now. I was feeling all right at this point, and it was just so much going on. They've got huge bright lights. I've got a million nurses. I've got my mom, my grandma, my son's dad, all in the room. I didn't cry when they gave him to me, when they put him on my chest. Like, this is the point in time where I completely stopped crying. I just felt very numb, very just mellow, blank. And they put him on me, and the first thing I said was, oh no, I messed his head up, because he got stuck and he had a big knot right here on top of his head. He had some side effects from the epidural. I was shaking after I gave birth to him, like literally holding my son, like shaking. And I had a really high fever. So I don't know if I had a bad reaction to the epidural. They also mentioned how I could have had an infection. When you get your water broke, or your water breaks naturally, and you go without fluids for a long amount of time, and you're open and you're getting checks, you know, things are going in and out, hands, objects, whatever, you know, they had to put a catheter in and all this good stuff. So like, you've got hands and tools going in and out of this just open septic like area, and it's no longer protected by the nice fluid placenta that's in there. You're open to a lot of risks of infection, and I wasn't aware of this. They broke my water around 7 centimeters, and at each hour I was only progressing about 1 centimeter at a time. So I went a good 4 hours before giving birth without having any fluid in there, and with different things going in and out. I gave birth around 5:34. So at this point, you know, the nurses switched over probably 5:30 or 6. And when the next nurse came into my room, it wasn't until about an hour and a half after I'd given birth. So mind you guys, this is a messy experience. So I had blood and whatever fluids else all over me. I had the, like, I forget what it's called, but the white sticky stuff that's all over the baby's skin when they come out. Like, he hadn't had a bath, so like we were just nasty. We were just very, very nasty, sweaty. I smelled terrible. I hadn't put deodorant on that day, so I just felt disgusting. On top of that, I really had to pee. And so, but I still couldn't feel my legs or move. So I'm just laying here stuck, just nasty with my baby. I stayed like that for about an hour and a half. When the next nurse came in, she was like, oh my gosh, these nurses should have had you cleaned up by now. They should not have left on a shift change with you like this. Like, you should have been up an hour ago, going to the bathroom, getting cleaned up, all of this stuff. And she was like, and I hate to come in here and say, but we have to wait to clean you up and take you to the bathroom because you also were put at risk for an infection. And we have to test and do all of this other testing before we can even get you up and moving. I was like really frustrated at this point. Like, I wanted to get really mad, but I knew it wasn't this nurse's fault. Like, she just got to work and I know they were really busy that day. So I tried to stay calm. Finally, probably around 8:30 or 9. So like 3 to 4 hours after I'd given birth, I was able to get up, go pee. She cleaned me up really good. And honestly, I loved this nurse. She was very, very nice and gave me a nice sponge bath while I still had the IVs in me. She lotioned me up. Like, she was a very, very, very nice lady. So as far as doctor care, I feel like throughout that day before having my son, the nurses honestly didn't do the best job, but I know that they were extremely busy. My nurses after giving birth were amazing. Dr. Nichols was a great coach for getting me through my labor. You know, she was very good at telling me, this is how you push, you need to calm down, it's okay, we're gonna get through this. Like, she was a very stern but nice at the same time. It was a good mix and it worked for me. You are in control of your entire experience, so don't let them try to pressure you into getting an epidural if you don't want one, or cutting the cord and clamping the cord or whatever before you're ready. You can leave it on. I personally didn't. I had my son's dad go ahead and just cut it immediately, but that is an option for you and you are in control. You have the option to wait on a bath. Kingston didn't have a bath until about 36 or so hours after I gave birth to him. That is up to you. You are in control and you're able to say no or yes or whatever to anything that you are offered or not offered. Speak your mind. It is your child and your experience. It's almost time for this little one to eat, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. But if you guys would like to see another video talking about my postpartum, you know, the first few weeks after having him and life with a new baby, then leave a comment down below and we can definitely do that video for you guys. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that now. Tell them subscribe. Subscribe to my mommy. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up. We'll see you guys next time. Say bye.